All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And back with some more headlines. Today, we're going to focus mainly on this headline dealing with this new, somewhat of an outbreak here of what is being called here the Hanta virus, okay, or the Hanta V, which I'm not sure how censored this topic will be in the future. So yeah, it's best to just start with the code names now. So the Hanta V, I just typed in here Hanta V outbreak, and you can see some of the headlines here, right? And it looked like they started with a cruise ship that ended up having to be quarantined because of this outbreak here. I think they said there was some passenger that got it, maybe Argentina, and then got on there, gave it to his wife. They died, and so it's currently being, well, as they're saying, handled. Now, just like the previous outbreaks that there have been, usually the protocol is while the WHODAT and the C people, right, the CDC and so on, and all these different medical institutions are assessing the situation, right? And I use that with air quotes. They usually come out and tell the public, "Oh, it's of no immediate, public threat or concern." Meanwhile, they're telling you some concerning news, but they're telling you, "No, don't worry about it." Try not to think about it, right? That's what they tell the public. But what's interesting here is reading some of these headlines, right? It says a cruise ship, Hanta V patients arrive in Europe for treatment. One here for the New York Times, which I'm sure it'll probably try to ask me to pay for it, but I'm not going to do that. But anyway, it says U.S. health authorities monitor Hanta V cruise passengers in Georgia, California, and Arizona. See, there you go. So they're letting you know that there's already cases, you can say, being monitored in the United States, specifically in those states. Now, when it comes to this, I mean, we've seen the playbook before, right? The whole 2019, 2020, 2021, that whole time. So when they start throwing terms out like contact tracing and, testing and quarantine, like these are not new terms. People already know what they are, right? So it's now, depending on how this goes, right? If this is the one they decide to ride upon, as the new big wave, because there have been some pretty significant changes in how the owl, right, the who people operate and what powers they have since the whole CV, right, since the last lockdown. And they claim that was through learnings and findings of how things were handled, as they worded, to reduce, right, how much they could have reduced the fatalities had they had different measures in place. But so now they're claiming that they are hoping to be in a position where they are better prepared for this kind of situation here. But that's something that we will, we'll see. So first, let me. I clicked on here. What is the Hanta V, and how is it spread? And this is the AI overview. Once again, AI is not always correct. It can be wrong. So just keep that in mind. I'll read one of these articles here, but just to get somewhat of an overview of what this is. So it says the Hanta V is a rare but severe, often fatal viral respiratory illness carried by wild rodents, particularly deer, mice, in the U.S. Humans become infected, usually in spring/summer, by breathing in aerosolized V particles from contaminated urine, droppings, or saliva when cleaning, renovating, or entering spaces with rodent infestations. Now, sometimes when you start hearing this kind of news and it starts to catch fire, like it starts being talked about almost everywhere. The actual illness itself or the pathogen itself, they'll tell you it's not really new. It's just a different strain, which is more concerning, right? They'll say, oh yeah, I mean, usually this is something that you may see around this time, or this is something that sometimes you see cases here and there, but this seems to be different, right? And then it starts off with how it's not contagious and it can't be easily spread, and then all of a sudden, whoa, everybody's locked down. Hold on, how did we get there? But this is all biblical prophecy, right? The Lord did say that he would bring pestilence as part of the judgments upon the world at the end of the world, right? More Hanta V suspected from cruise ship, latest on illness. Let's take a look at what is in here. A lot going on this page. It says an 8th Hanta V linked case has been identified among passengers who traveled on a cruise ship in the Atlantic Ocean, officials announced on Wednesday, May 6th. Now, the interesting thing about this as well is there's so many unknowns, right? There's so many unknowns. There's an unknown in, well, they're saying that the time period before symptoms appear is much longer than the CV. So what that means is you can come in contact with so many different people. I mean, if this is something that just, is easily spreadable or contagious, or maybe they turn around and say it's not, who knows, right? But hypothetically speaking, if we're dealing with a situation, right, you have patient 0 and they're not symptomatic until 8 days or the 14th day, or maybe the 3rd or 4th week, do you know how many people come in contact with over even just the span of like a day when you're just in your day-to-day? So if this is somebody traveling, or they're on vacation, or they're here and there, what happens is by the time it's discovered, by the time they start showing symptoms, at that point where they are, they're grabbed up, quarantined, whatever the case is. But to try and actually trace back their steps, where they've been, who they've seen, who they've come in contact with. Maybe they were walking, maybe their passport fell down and somebody reached to grab it for them, and then they grabbed it from the person's hand, and then their hands touched, or they said thank you, and then an extra spit particle jumped onto the person's hand, and the person unknowingly rubbed their eyes or something. But these things happen. They're real. You just don't see it. And there's so many different interactions. You go to the bathroom, you interact, maybe somebody's in there, you pass by. Once again, depending on how contagious said pathogen could be, the point is there's so many different ways in which you interact with people that by the time they find any symptoms and say, okay, this is our patient 0, we need to lock them down. And it took them what? Let's say, and I'm just giving a hypothetical situation here, and it took them maybe 3 weeks to be symptomatic. All the different people they've met, whether it's in a different country, on the way to a different country, on the way back home, all of those. Guess what? You got to go and find every single one of them. And then it's not just them, it's those they've come in contact with, and then those they've come in contact with. So you see how quickly it's like a wildfire. But, this is something that we're reporting on to show, right? Hey, like, pay attention. This is what's going on. Remember, the Lord did say, and we're going to read it in a second, that he was going to bring pestilence. So we got to be watching and be on the lookout. Like, okay, is this one of those that the Lord is, the Lord said he's going to bring? Because we know that whatever it is the Lord said he's going to bring, it'll catch everybody's attention. And it won't be just for scaring you. Why do you think the Heavenly Father mentioned judgment? He mentioned death, famine, destruction, plagues as end time prophecies, or part of the end time prophecies. And when you read in the context in which those plagues are brought, they're to take people out. they're not to just scare you a bit to keep you indoors. No, When the Lord mentioned famine in the book of Second Esdras, he mentioned many that dwell upon the face of the earth shall perish of famine. Right? And those that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. So these plagues the Lord is bringing, they're to kill. They're to destroy. And very soon you'll find out it'll go past. See, Esau uses oftentimes these plagues to control, because what he really wants is the fear. Yes, he has a depopulation agenda, and we know that. But along with fear, mass fear, comes control, and he can use that control as make it easier for him to steer the world into the direction of his new world order. The Lord said, "I already have control. It's payback time. It's time of vengeance." So it says the WHO said the particular strain has been confirmed as Andes V. Right, Andes V. Now, let me go back here real quick. I think I saw something on this. We'll come back to this article in a second. So when I was reading down here, what is this and how it's spread? Somewhere in here there was a mention of that. Oh yeah, there it is. So when you read the how to get the Hanta V, the transmission methods, right? You have inhalation, the most common route, breathing in dust or air contaminated with particles from, the source where you can get it from. But one of the other ones here is person to person. Now you see it says incredibly rare, only one specific strain. That means there are different kinds of strain, but there's only one specific strain, the Andes V, and that one is known to transmit between humans, likely requiring close contact. Likely is not 100% saying that's the only way that this can transmit between humans. So it's interesting that according to AI here, is AI overview, the only one specific strain that is known to transmit between humans just so happens to be the one that you're dealing with. Ain't that some shit? So let's continue on reading here. And they confirmed it, right? So it says 3 people have died since the outbreak began on the MV Hundius, a cruise ship run by Netherlands-based operator Oceanwide Expeditions. 3 others were evacuated from the ship earlier today. Here's the latest. So, the cruise ship, where is the cruise ship now? The MV Hundius departed from its location of Cape Verde, an island nation near Africa's west coast, on May 6th and headed north. The ship will sail toward the Canary Islands off the coast of Spain. This is expected to take 3 to 4 days. Oceanwide said in an update, 3 additional medical professionals have embarked the MV Hundius, however it's pronounced, to provide optimal medical care during the crossing. One medicalized aircraft carrying 2 of the 3 people evacuated from the vessel landed in the Netherlands, and the pair were met by medical personnel. Okay, cool. What else is on here? Okay, what's happening on board? The situation is being closely monitored. As a precaution, passengers have been asked to remain in their cabins while disinfection and other public health measures are carried out. WHO official Maria van Kerkhove said during a May 5th news conference, medical teams from Cabo Verde are providing support on board the ship. Okay, give us more information though. Let's see, what else is happening on here? Okay, how is this transmitted? So it says the human Hanta V infection is primarily transmitted through contact with the urine, feces, or saliva of infected rodents. Although uncommon, limited human-to-human transmission has been reported in previous outbreaks per the WHO. Officials believe a husband and wife, Dutch nationals, were infected while they were off the cruise ship engaging in wildlife expeditions. Of course they'd be engaging in wildlife expeditions. Others with suspected infections may have come in contact with the V on islands as well, Van Kerkhove said during the briefing. So that's an issue. Was that the only cruise ship that visited that island? Were the people who got infected in contact with others who were on maybe other cruise ships, which had landed in different areas already, and those people have already gone to their different destinations? Maybe somebody went on vacation. They were going to multiple stops, so they hit this area, and then their cruise ship went and made a stop in a different country, and they went out there and they interacted with all these different people, and then got on the plane and brought their ass back to the U.S. you know, so who knows, right? You don't know that, but I'm pretty sure we'll find out as time goes on. Should this be something like the next big thing, right? The next major event going on here now. Not to mention, this is on top of what's already going on with this whole energy crisis, world economic chokehold. We do believe that there may be some human-to-human transmission that's happening among the really close contacts, the husband and wife, people who've shared cabins, etc. Yeah, so this is what I was mentioning at the beginning of the lesson, right? They said the current risk to the rest of the world is low, but it is continuing to monitor the situation and provide updates, right? That's like a basic arithmetic for them, right? Like that's the in the beginning, the first thing they see is, most of the time they don't really alarm people on the first initial information that they bring out. They don't really go and try to push fear. It's all part of damage control. They're not gonna come out and tell you on just the first assessment, oh yeah, everybody got to panic. This is a world-ending pathogen going on here. Of course not. It's always, oh yeah, the risk is low, and we're gonna continue monitoring, and then depending on how things go, then the alarm starts to either rise up quickly, slowly, moderately, or it just quietly goes under somewhere and gets overshadowed by some other current event that's going on in the world. Which path is this gonna take? We're gonna watch and see. We are gonna watch and see. Now, it says on May 6th, according to officials, U.S. residents in at least 3 states are being monitored for the V after being on the ship and returning home, although they're not showing symptoms. Well. The Georgia Department of Public Health confirmed to USA Today that it is monitoring 2 people. The California Department of Public Health in Arizona and Arizona Department of Health Services also said they're monitoring at least 1 resident, respectively, according to the Times. Now, whatever gave them the clue to monitor those, well, I mean, think about it, right? They mentioned Arizona. They mentioned, was it Georgia, Arizona, California? I'm not going to be surprised, should this be the direction they're headed in, if New York starts to pop up real soon after, because New York is a very frequented place. The Hanta-V symptoms. Symptoms typically begin 2 to 3 weeks after infection. Once again, people think that they're infected when they see symptoms, right? And that's like on the basis that immediately, like the second you feel the symptoms, that's when you got infected. But according to this, that's not the case. Now, 2 to 3 weeks, like that's a day. That's 7 days in 1 week. That's 24 hours in a day. 2 to 3 of those. That's at least 2 weekends, which people like to go out places, right? And now the weather's getting nicer, so people definitely like to go out and interact more with each other. So you don't begin to see symptoms after 2 to 3 weeks. Man. And can include fever, chills, muscle aches, vomiting, and diarrhea. But these are also similar symptoms as other illnesses, some that may be even more common. Sometimes people get a fever, sometimes people get chills, sometimes they get muscle aches, vomiting, diarrhea, if it's real bad. But The average individual who probably doesn't even know that something like this is going on, the first thing that's going to come to their mind is not going to be that they got Hanta V. If they start experiencing these symptoms, they're going to think, oh, they're just not feeling well, they're under the weather. Then they may go to the gym, they may go to work, they may go to the grocery store. In serious cases, it can cause issues with lung and heart function, per the Mayo Clinic. So there's some symptoms to keep in mind over there. And it says here, there are already 3 dead after suspected Hanta V on cruise. Yeah, the rest of y'all better pray heavily, because it ain't looking like you getting let off that ship anytime soon. Let's get a little bit more information here. It says, according to the WHO, 8 cases, including 3 lab-confirmed cases of the Hanta V or the HV, have been identified among those who traveled on the ship. Okay, cool. Here's a summary of the cases. You had an adult male develop symptoms of fever, headache, and mild diarrhea on April 6th. He developed respiratory symptoms and died on board on April 11th. My God, that's not even a week after that. All right. His body was removed to St. Helena, a British overseas territory in the South Atlantic, on April 24th. Next, you had an adult female, identified as the wife of the man who died on board on April 11th. She went ashore St. Helena on April 24th with gastrointestinal symptoms. Lord have mercy. Her symptoms worsened during a flight to Johannesburg, South Africa. On April 25th, she died on April 26th. So I wonder who she came in contact with on that flight. The case was confirmed as Hanta V infection on May 4th. Officials said the husband and wife were Dutch nationals and had traveled in South America, including Argentina, before they boarded the cruise ship. There's a lot of different cases here. 8 cases. You had an adult male reported a fever, shortness of breath, and signs of pneumonia on the ship. So these would also sound almost like different symptoms. Like this girl, she's having gastrointestinal symptoms. They worsen, boom, she's dead. The first guy having diarrhea, headaches, fever. Next thing you know, respiratory issues. He's gone. He's out of there. Then you got another one. He's having shortness of breath, signs of pneumonia. If shortness of breath, you might not think anything of it at first. But then, you're thinking, I'll just take some Tylenol or whatever and sleep it off. And then you try sleeping and it's not coming off. Then, anyway, his condition worsened. He was medically evacuated to South Africa on April 27th. He is currently hospitalized in an ICU. Testing confirmed Hanta V infection on May 2nd. You had an adult female. Symptoms began April 28th. She had fever, pneumonia, gone May 2nd. So this thing is taking them out quick. An individual, they did say, I believe the fatality rate of this is much higher than the CV. And like I said, they learned the first time around, right? They knew people were like, yo, you just scaring people with a code, with a common code labeled as something else. Like I'm saying, that's some of the thoughts that came into people's minds when they realized, now you get the same thing and it's like a common code. Everything is good. But this time around, they could very well go with the approach of, we'll let you experience it for yourself. We'll let you see the horrors of it. Remember, we're in the time of judgment. And once again, the Lord is not trying to have you window shopping with judge. No. You're about to experience the full wrath. And it's about to be a very scary time, man. Some of these pathogens, these illnesses, and dying by that is a very scary thing, especially when it's like, you think you got it, you're not sure if you got it. What do you do when you got it? Like, you're hearing all this about everybody else who got it being cooked. And now you're afraid. Yeah, you're afraid. Wait, if you start getting symptoms, did you get it? What about your family? What about those you've been in contact with? Because now it's not like somebody is harassing you or they sent you a creepy text message. You call the cops on them. You know, somebody threatens you, you call your man, or you call a friend, and they come and solve the problem. You're hungry, you go to the store, you solve the problem. No, when you deal with a problem like this, that's a different kind of, you need different kind of help for this. And that's what the Lord is going to do. The Lord is going to start to bring problems that is going to require divine providence in order to be delivered from. And that's going to be a very humbling thing for the world, because divine providence is the last thing people have sought, save the elect, save those that have put their faith and trust in the Lord. And the rest of the world is going to come to that slow, painful realization that that's exactly what they should have been doing. Meanwhile, that's exactly what they were avoiding. You had another individual here, evacuated from the ship May 6th. He was taken to the Netherlands for medical treatment. And, okay, so it seems that's his current status. Another one, evacuated from the ship May 6th, taken to Netherlands for medical treatment. Same one. Same situation for another individual. And lastly, you had a Swiss man traveled on the ship before returning home. Uh-oh. He's been admitted to a hospital after exhibiting symptoms, and they don't say much more after that. So, pretty interesting information here, right? Concerning how it spreads and all this other stuff about it. But once again, we're in those times, man, where the Lord is bringing harsh, cruel, judgments upon the world. Let me go here real quick. This is Matthew 24:6. And these are part of the signs the Lord said we would see, right, and live through prior to his return and to the end of this age. So Matthew 24:6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. And we're seeing that, right? We're living through that now. But it says, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And then he continues to mention, right, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, that division on many levels, right? Race levels, class level, political levels. All facets. Isaiah 19 also mentions that about the Lord setting Egyptian against Egyptian, which those Egyptians are not talking about the ancient Egyptians, right? But they're a representation of about modern day Egyptians, which are Americans. And you can find more things that Americans are divided on than you can find them being unified on. People will even, go back and forth with each other just because they're of a different gender. It says here, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Once again, these things are happening. They're taking place, but people are not watching. They're not paying attention. They expect this to be, when there's a famine or there's a earthquake, it's the top craziest thing, is the main event. Before they'll think, okay, wait, no, this might be related to Matthew 24. But you got to be paying attention. And the Lord said after this that all these are the beginning of sorrows. That's not a joke. That's not a joke, man. The reality of the matter is, when you're watching a video about something or you're reading an article about something, it does not do it justice compared to when you're experiencing it. The fear that sets into your mind, the thoughts, the things you worry about, the things you start to question when you're actually put in this situation here. You get a little bit of chills and now you're wondering, yo, what's going on here? You sneezing once or twice, maybe 3 times too many. And you start wondering, yo, what's happening here? But we're going to need that divine providence from the Lord, because he is the one sending these plagues. All right, now I had a precept here. Let me see if I can there it is. And this is Jeremiah 14:11. Now, this is an experience Jeremiah went through, but it's dealing with the same people we're dealing with today. And the way the Lord handled them back then, he's going to do now, but on a much greater scale. Jeremiah 14:11, then said the Lord unto me, pray not for this people for their good. Now, he didn't say anything about for their bad, because they were wicked. They're still wicked today. So you could pray for their bad. You could pray for their bad, but don't pray for their good. Why? Because the Lord is not going to hear it. Verse 12, when they fast, I will not hear their cry. And when they offer burnt offering and an oblation, I will not accept them. But I will consume them by the sword and by the famine and by the pestilence. So when, because that's what these people do, right? They sit, they continue in wickedness. They continue. That's how their normal lives they're accustomed to now is like some form of wickedness, right? And they do that and they do that and they do that until judgment breaks forth, and then they cry out for help unto the Lord. And he's saying, I'm not gonna hear your cries, and you're gonna go through some slow, agonizing, painful destruction, and all the whole time wishing and hoping and begging just for a chance, not even just to be, but for a chance to even just do anything you can do to get out of that situation. One example is look at Antiochus Epiphanes and how he died. That was a horrific way to go out. Had him begging for his life all kinds of ways, but guess what? The judgment of the Lord was already sent against him, and he wasn't going to change his mind. It's the 2nd Ezra chapter 5, verse 1. It says, nevertheless, as coming the tokens, behold, the day shall come, that they which dwell upon earth shall be taken in great number, or in a great number. And the way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith. And majority of the earth today is barren of true faith in the Lord. They have faith in other things, but faith in the Lord is very rare and can be found really truly amongst the elect. Because even you have some that even they proclaim to be men of the Lord and so on, but they don't really have actual faith in the Lord. They're very good at acting like they do, but they don't actually have faith. But it says that they're going to be taken in a great number in terms of destroyed. And when you start to see, the angels described it to Ezra as a wave compared to a drop. Bro, a wave compared to a build. First off, a building is big. A building is huge. A building can house a lot of people. And when you compare a wave, some of those huge waves to a building doesn't even stand a chance. How much less a drop? That ratio is almost inconceivable. Like, how do you even rationalize about something like that? But imagine that being the comparison of life and death. That's actually mass death, mass destruction that the Lord is going to bring. And when all this is said and done, the world is going to be traumatized into righteousness, just like it was after he brought the plagues upon ancient Egypt. Except this is going to overshadow that. So folks, best get ready, because the Lord is not playing. Definitely not in these times. Anyway, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Wadash. And until next time, Shalom.